Islamic University Malaysia, and I'll be your moderator for today. Members of the room, freedom of expression is not only a legal concept, it is also shaped by culture, history, and public attitudes. In some contexts, it is celebrated as an inherent right. In others, it is approached with caution, shaped by national priorities and also social values. Before introducing our esteemed panelists, I would like to briefly highlight some recent developments in each of our focus countries to set the stage for our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia, July 2025 marked the largest protest in recent years with the Turun Anwar rally, which proceeded peacefully despite a strong security presence. At the same time, the Justice for Zara movement has drawn public attention to issues of accountability and state response to civic demands. However, laws such as the Sedition Act 1948, the Cybersecurity Act 2004 and 2024, and the expansion of online regulations continue to raise concerns about surveillance, censorship, and also self-censorship. Next, moving to Indonesia, since the beginning of 2025, releases such as Indonesia Gelap have faced dispersals, arrests, and heightened monitoring. Here, restrictive legislation and the growing use of surveillance tools have been employed to curtail both public demonstration and online activism. Turning next to Vietnam, state control over information has deepened through media consolidation and introduction of Decree 147 in 2025. This law requires real name verification on social media and expands the scope of online censorship, leaving very limited space for independent journalism or dissenting voices. So, with this context in mind, let us finally meet our panelists for today. Ladies and gentlemen, from Malaysia, we have Mr. Muhammad Hanif Khatri Abdullah, who is a senior lawyer and founder of Hanif Khatri Advocates and Solicitors. He is renowned for his work in criminal and constitutional law, including high-profile public interest cases. He previously served as legal advisor to Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, a former Prime Minister for Malaysia during the formation of Parti Pribumi Bersatu PPBM. In addition, he also provided key legal counsel on constitutional and administrative issues during a critical period in Malaysia's political transition. For your information, he earned his Bachelor of Laws from London School of Economics and has been active in the Malaysian bar for over 2 decades. We are very honored to have him with us today. How are you, Mr. Hanif?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all members of ALSA Indonesia, ALSA Vietnam, and our local ALSA Malaysia. Thank you very much for this invitation.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, now, next from Indonesia, I would like to introduce Mrs. Bivitri Susanti, who is a lecturer at Indonesia Jentera School of Law and co-founder of the Center for Indonesian Law and Policy Studies. She is a leading advocate for democratic reform, anti-corruption, and legislative transparency, and also a recipient of the M. Yamin Constitutional, a Bachelor of Law from the University of Indonesia and Master of Laws from the University of Kingdom. I am sure everyone's looking forward to our session today. So,
fine, thank you. I hope everyone is also fine, healthy, and happy. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I'm really glad that both of our panelists today are feeling fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, we were also scheduled to welcome another panelist from Vietnam, Mr. Lê Nguyen Duy Hao. Unfortunately, due to an urgent commitment and his early flight to Hanoi this morning, he is unable to be with us today. So, now that we've met our panelists, let us begin with our conversation. Our first part will explore how freedom of expression is understood both legally and culturally in each country. Panelists, I would like to start with a two-part question. Firstly, How is freedom of expression defined and protected under your country's constitution or laws? Secondly, beyond the law, when the citizens in your country hear the phrase freedom of expression, what do they think it means? It is seen as a fundamental right, a conditional privilege, or something else entirely. Let us begin our discussion with Mr. Hanif and then we'll move to Mrs. Fitri. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Che Aisha. And again, very good morning to all attendees. First and foremost, when we talk about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, in most of the countries which have written constitution, like in Malaysia, where we do have a federal constitution from the date when we got independence in 1957, freedom of speech comes under a certain specific part under the constitution, which is fundamental liberties. And our concept of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, as well as freedom of assemblies is protected under Article 10 of the Constitution. Maybe if I can get Ponaisha to share the screen of Article 10. Yes. Now, as you can see, Article 10.1 has divided three specific freedoms with regards to speech. One is freedom of speech and expression under 1A. B is right to assemble peaceably without arms. And C, which is not relevant for our discussion today, is right to form associations. But if you can look at Article 10, sub 2, the one below, it also states freedom of speech and assembly is subject to laws which can be passed by Parliament. However, it says that Parliament may by law impose on an expression restrictions as it deems necessary or expedient on five categories. One, in the interest of the security of the Federation or any part thereof. Federation would include the whole of Malaysia, East Malaysia, and West Malaysia. As I think our friends in Indonesia will be aware that Pulau Borneo is shared Indonesia and Sabah and Sarawak. Second category is friendly relations with other countries. Third is public order or morality. Fourth is restrictions designed to protect the privileges of Parliament or any legislative assembly, or to provide against five, contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to any offense. So those are the restrictions which by law can be imposed by the Parliament. Parliament in Malaysia is the legislature which will enact the law as provided for under the Constitution. So they can pass law if they wish, if it comes under those categories, to limit the freedom of speech and expression. Whereas for freedom of assembly, it can be limited under 2B, which says such restrictions as it deems necessary or expedient in the interest of the security of the Federation or any part thereof or public order. Therefore, one glossary look at the provisions, I think it is very obvious that for freedom of assembly and freedom of expression, anything which touches on security or public order can be restricted through law by the Parliament. Whereas for expression or speech, it can further be restricted by way of laws to protect issue of morality, issue of privileges of Parliament and Legislative Assembly, and with regards to the right of others, which is the right of the court, contempt of court, defamation, which is the personal right or private right of other individuals, and incitement to any offense which may create public disorder. So those are generally the rights which are protected under Article 10, subject to restrictions. I think before we move on, it is also important to refer to one famous quote on freedom of expression. I think everyone would have heard of George Washington, the first president of the US. What did he say on his famous quote on freedom of speech? He said, if the freedom of speech is taken away, the dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. So the issue of freedom of speech is very fundamental to any society. Let's not forget, George Washington was in the 18th century. It still goes on until now. The right of expression, right of speech, right to assemble to express your opinions are still very much fundamental in any civil society, whether it's in the West or whether it's in the East, North, or South. But then again, freedom of speech is also not something which can be granted completely without restrictions. Why? Because one has to balance the right of the public. As decided in the case of Brandenburg and Ohio, a 1969 US Supreme Court decision, I'll just take that famous quote from that case. It says, free speech doesn't protect speech intended to incite imminent lawlessness action. What does it mean? One can say what you want, one can do what you want, one can walk through the streets for whatever is required, subject to the rights of others are protected. Because we can't only think about our right to express. We must also remember we live in a society which needs to protect others from anything which may harm the society. But this is where the balance is easy to be spoken but difficult to be practiced. What I'm saying is, at times we'll find in any country and in Malaysia as well that there have been issues taken to the courts where certain laws which has been passed to restrict the provision of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of assembly have been asked, or the courts have been asked to determine whether those restrictions are within the restrictions allowed by the Constitution or not. I'll cover that on my second part. I think for the first part, it's sufficient length here, which I've spoken on the general aspect of freedom of speech in Malaysia and the restrictions thereto. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Mr. Hanif. So before I'll give a little bit summary on what he has spoken, I would like to invite Mrs. Sumidi to give her thoughts on the same question.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Aisha. I actually prepared quite long, not quite long, but longer presentation than this particular question. So probably I can cut it into half, and then Aisha can continue later on the whatever question that Aisha already prepared. Thank you. So I will share my presentation for a second. So probably to directly, first of all, answer Aisha's question, I should start with this constitutional basis. Wait a second. Okay, here it is. So if we talk about the constitutional basis for freedom of speech and also as freedom to assemble, freedom to express opinions, Indonesia has the particular provisions on those issues. Uh, um, the main one is Article 28E, paragraph 3 of the Constitution, and please bear in mind that this is inserted in the third amendment of the 1945 Constitution in the year 2000. So you can all read the provision there that every person shall have the right to, oh, sorry, to freedom of association, to assemble, to express opinions. But I must say that this clause is uh, um, this clause doesn't stand alone because the same constitution actually said that there are limitations based on public interest, morals, public order, and the rights of the others. So this is Article 28J. So you can see it's originally Article 28, but then in 2000, um, post 1998 reform, there are three. Excuse me a little bit because I have another meeting actually ongoing. There are amendments to the constitutions from 1999 to 2002. So they inserted a number of provisions. So 28 became 28A, B, C, D until J. And the problem is the last provision in Article 28, which says that there are limitations to human rights based on public interest, moral, and public order, and that those things shall be further regulated in laws. So based on this, then there are limitations, such as law number 19 of 2016 concerning information ITE, we call it the ITE law, the information and transaction, electronic transaction. So I can probably um, show you the draconian laws that then we have to talk about. First of all, we have the defamation law. We still have that. Our criminal code has just amended or actually changed, and it will be in effect in January 2026. But even the new penal code still has article about defamation. And then we have hate speech law in the ITE law or IET law. And then we have blasphemy law. Yes, we do, unfortunately. And then there's also treason and sedition law in the Indonesian Criminal Code or Penal Code. I used the term penal code before. And then the state intelligence law, and then also the law on freedom to express an opinion in public, 1998. Number six is actually not that strict. It only says that, you know, whenever we go to protest in the streets, and then we have to inform um, uh, law enforcement agencies, especially the police, basically informing the authorities. But uh, in reality, they use that as um, kind of permission to go to the streets. Now, what I have prepared is actually something that I would like you to pay attention to what's going on in Indonesia. So I've been very busy recently because of these events. Probably you have read in the news, and I learned, and I was interviewed by Malaysian media, and I learned that friends in Malaysia have been also talking about this. Thank you very much, and we do need solidarity on this. So I just show you the pictures because people say picture can, you know, talks about thousands of words. So this is what happened in the 28th of August. It started actually on the 25th of August, where there's public rage because they saw how the actions of a number of public officials, basically ridiculing criticisms from the public, saying that the public who criticize the House of Representatives are stupid, and then they were making, you know, gestures that really hurt the people. So there was big demonstration on the 25th. That's one. And then what made the situation got worse was the incident on the 28th of August, where one um, delivery person actually got hit by the police car. Um, and yeah, he passed away. But more than that, I will show you later on the data. But this is what's going on, and so there has been symbolization of actions such as this very nice Ibu woman in the pink hijab who who, who was against the police at one point. So we use that color. We call it what do we call it? Brave pink as one of the symbolization for the movement these days. We also have hero green or heroic green because Afan Kurniawan, the driver who passed away because of the police car, he wore the green jacket from the online delivery services. So I have this point for presentation, but as I promised before, because I don't know that the format of the discussion is question and answer like this. So I prepared actually a longer presentation. So probably I could fast forward to what's going on briefly for threats to civic space in Indonesia. Um, um, I would say there are four types of threats. First is physical attack, harassment, and violence. And then secondly, online attack and harassment and online violence. And then judicial harassment. And then lastly, but also as important, is government restrictions on registration and international funding for civil society organizations. So on physical attack, I don't want to show you again the horrifying video where the Afan Kurniawan was killed because of the police car. And when I talk about police car, don't imagine, just the sedan police car hitting a person, but this is a huge tactical made from steel kind of police car. So I just show you the cartoon here, so because it might be traumatic. I was traumatized when I first saw the video, but I just want to show you the data here that even before August 2025, Contrast Commission for the Disappeared and Victims of Violence, they would release data like this every year. Between July 2024 and June 2025, there were 602 violent conducts expectedly by the police. Why July to June? Because Contrast usually release that for the commemoration of the police, the day of commemoration of the police, the 1st of July. 411 of those incidents were gunshots in Indonesia by the police. And then just to give you another example, since 2020, so I want you to look at the whole bigger picture, not only this year's incident, but even since 5 years ago. At that time, Amnesty International Indonesia recorded at least 402 victims of police violence during the protests, including journalists. And then in August 2025 alone, I should just mention here excessive use of mass control using water cannons and expired tear gas from the beginning of the protest. So it's not like there were, violence from the protesters and then they responded with tear gas. No, they started from 12 o'clock noon throwing the tear gas. And we have data already because I'm also in the coalition of activists working on this, that they are actually expired cans of tear gas. So it's even more dangerous than the tear gas alone. And then the second type is online attack. Let's just call it online attack, harassment, and violence. And this is, as you can see, I just want to show you the types of digital attacks. So I use old data. I'm sorry about that, 2022, but the data would be similar because here I want to again show you the types of digital attacks. Personal data leaks, of course, and then hacking, uh, threats, theft of personal data, doxing. A lot of doxing, are happening as we speak. And then the judicial harassment. I started with this slide before, but let me just show you the use of such draconian laws. You can see the one that is very often used is the information technology law, and then we can see other use of laws here. Recently, what I just visited some comrades yesterday in jail because I have the data here. Per this morning, 3,337 protesters detained in 20 cities, so not only Jakarta. Yesterday, I visited some friends. Unfortunately, I had to do that. I mean, to visit a friend in jail is really breaking. But yeah, I visited them yesterday. But there are more than 3,000 actually detained in 20 cities, and then 1,024 injured, 10 deaths, including Afan Kurniawan. And sadly, of 3,337, 382 are children, high school students. They're also detained. We couldn't see them, we couldn't visit them yesterday, but we got report from that friend of mine whom we visited, Del Pedro Marhain, that some of them are beaten up and very sad. I mean, I couldn't hold my tear yesterday because I also met the mother of my friend who was, crying because she said, "I don't understand. My son is not, a criminal. All he did was to go to the street to protest about, to criticize the government. How can he be treated like this?" And then, unfortunately, also per this morning, 3 persons are still missing. So this is the current situation as we speak now. And then the fourth type is government restrictions on registration and international funding for CSOs. Threats to disband CSOs by revoking or discontinue the registration and lengthy and repressing procedures for international organizations working in Indonesia, especially with CSOs. Yesterday, I actually had a discussion with a number of influencers, very famous influencers with millions of followers. So what they did was just in English, to tell the story about what's going on in Indonesia, and then they appeal for donation from Indonesian diaspora or Indonesian students abroad. But now they are called actually by the government to explain why they collected such donation. Although I actually helped them to channel the donation from abroad to the Tim Advokasi untuk Demokrasi, Advocacy Team for Democracy, who are legal aid organizations who help demonstrators legally. And I also told them that the organizations that provide health services and funds for the protesters who had to go to the hospitals. But on Monday, they have to clarify the situation to the government because they collected such donations. That's just one example. So this is what's going on in Indonesia. Probably I stop here because I believe Aisha would have more questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Mrs. Vivitri and also Mr. Hanif. It is very sad to hear about the harsh reality that is currently faced by the public in Indonesia. However, we can learn something. We can learn a lot of things actually from the sharing that has been shared by Mrs. Vivitri and also Tuan Hanif. We can actually see that there are similarities between the laws in Malaysia and also Indonesia. In Malaysia, we have the Article 10 under our federal constitution, which touch on the freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, expression. And in Indonesia, there is Article 28, which also talks about the same things. However, another similarity between both countries is that in Malaysia, there are restrictions when it comes to the freedom of expression. If it concerns our security, it must be imposed by the law. There must be action to be taken. And in Indonesia, there are also limitations towards the freedom of speech. So this is a interesting similarity between both countries, and I am really attracted and it really stuck in my mind the quote that was chosen by Mr. Hanif from George Washington, which is, if the freedom of speech is taken away, the dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. And actually, this is something that is currently faced by our generation, even though this is something that has been imposed since the time of George Washington. So now that we've known the current situation, the laws, and also what our freedom of expression actually is in both countries, let us move to the second part of our forum. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and also as panelists, we know that freedom of expression often exists in tension with other priorities such as national security, public morality, and also social harmony, as stated by both of our panelists before. Hence, I would like to ask, in Malaysia and also Indonesia, what are the factors that shape how far people feel comfortably speaking openly? And are there certain topics that people are comfortable discussing and others that they tend to avoid? I'm sure that both of these questions has been touched before, but we would like to hear further explanation from both of our panelists. I would like to invite Mr. Hanif to discuss further on this.
Okay, thank you again, Che Aisha, for the additional question for round two. I would start by saying that at the end of the day, it all depends on the individual, the character of the individual, of what they prefer to talk about, what attracts them, what actually molds their thoughts, and that will then decide what they are comfortable in talking about. On the other hand, if specifically with regards to Malaysia, since we've got a very long standing law which is called Sedition Act 1948, there are certain categories of issues which public find it difficult whether they should talk about it or not. What are those issues? One, as we are all aware, hopefully in Indonesia and Vietnam, you may have followed the contents of the society in Malaysia. We have a multicultural, multiracial background of a society. Majority is Malay, then we have Chinese, Indian, and others as well as part of the population. So when it comes to race, religion, and there's another category called royals, because in Malaysia we've got 9 kings or sultans or raja, and one of them is chosen for every 5 years to be the Yang di Pertuan Agong, the king of the federation. So these three categories come specifically under Sedition Act. If one is to say or to do something which might incite hatredness among the communities, among the religion, or with regards to the situation of the royal, public will be refrained or will be wondering and will be concerned whether what they are saying is offending or not. At the end of the day, it depends on what is your intention to speak about it. What is the purpose of speaking about it? Because there is also a defense under Section 4 of Sedition Act. If you speak about all these issues with intent to actually bring about suggestions to improve the situation, that is not seditious. It's an absolute defense. For example, if you're talking about the royals, I just take it as an example. Don't take it as a live example. Yeah, just as an example of discussion. If we have an issue about certain royal in certain state, perhaps doing things improperly, taking the state land for personal use. Now, this can be discussed. This should be discussed because that is also against the interests of the public. And that would amount to proper defense under Section 4 if you raise it properly in public. For example, if you question, you don't incite hatredness by claiming without basis what is the issue. Bring forward the evidence, bring forward the facts, put forward a report to the necessary authority, and let it be discussed properly publicly. That would therefore be an exception. Also, we have an issue here about the protection of or the interests of the majority, the Bumiputras, the Malays, where under Article 153 the privileges are protected. But if there are suggestions to talk about how to improve it, how to mitigate it, those are matters of public interest. Those are matters of what is referred to as ilmiah, knowledge, which can be suggested to the nation, to the policymakers. And these suggestions could and should not be treated as an affront to the Sedition Act. And even if the authorities take a different approach, questions you, or calls you to the police station, takes statement from you, takes you to court, you should prepare your defense and put forward. One thing for sure, we do have, to a certain extent, certain protection from the courts in Malaysia, where there have been many cases in which, taken to court, the courts will decide fairly, based on the law, first and foremost based on the constitution, and secondly based on the law. Now, if I can just touch a bit on what has been referred to by our earlier panelists. It is sad to see what is happening in Indonesia, but I think to summarize Section 95 is overreaching the restriction allowed under Article 10 to be the one where you can restrict public assembly. He says overreaching because the criminalizing the act of not giving notice itself is too harsh a restriction to the fundamental right to assemble and to have a punishment as provided for under uh, Section 5 of that particular act, which is a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit, is highly disproportionate to what is fair. The court, having heard arguments, decided in favor of Amir Hariri and said, yes, Section 9.5 is overreaching. It goes beyond until the right of assembly becomes illusory. So the federal court nullified Section 9.5. Therefore, from the 1st of July 2025, from the date of that decision now onwards, whoever who doesn't give notice cannot be charged in court as a criminal offense because that doesn't amount to an offense. But having said that, remember what we discussed. What about the right of the society? Surely, public needs to know, is there going to be an assembly anywhere in Kuala Lumpur or anywhere in the country? When is it going to happen? So they can decide, do they want to be there or they want to avoid the streets on that particular day. The traders in the area who have their shops open, their restaurants open, would like to know as well, so they can take precautionary steps to ensure that things don't go beyond control. Also, Malaysia is also well known in the KL City Centre as a tourist attraction. Tourists need to be informed so they can go to other places, not the same place. So we have to balance this right. So my view, which I've given my view to the press on this issue, is that even though it's not a criminal action anymore, let's be a civil society. Let the organizers take the practical approach of informing the police, assuming you know you're going to have an assembly in a week's time. What's wrong in telling the police, Tuan Police, we intend to have an assembly on this issue. We intend to cover a spread of about 2 kilometers. Could you please take the necessary steps to facilitate our assembly? Why? Because you need the participants in the assembly. You need the people in the surrounding area to also be protected with proper facilitation of traffic. So it avoids accidents, it avoids unnecessary problems to the place where you are. So we do not want a situation where participants in assembly can go beyond proper act and commit perhaps robbery, commits perhaps violence to public property. If police are there, the appearance of the police will ensure to a certain extent this can be avoided. So the balancing of the right is something which all members of the society must understand. On one hand, you have a right to assemble, you have a right to express, but balance your right. Balance your right with the right of others who may want to have a different way of life or different activity on that particular day. So how do we do that? Even though the criminalization of the law has now been nullified by the federal court.
and usually we would take, I mean, we as in Gen X, my generation, will take that also lightly. But in this current situation, anything you say, if you can be framed as the provocator of the demonstrations, then you can just go to jail for whatever you say, whatever you do. So it's really the intention of the people in power or the elite at this point in Indonesia. So, so probably I can go back again to my presentation. Originally, I wanted to talk about what's going on, why shrinking civic space, and then how the civil society responds. But again, because the format of the discussion changed, but hopefully I can still deliver the point that my intention really is to encourage you to approach the law from different perspectives. If you only talk about the text in the law, the text in the constitution, and then you won't be able to analyze, um, in the uh, in depth about what's going on. So with that, um, then what we can see lately in Indonesia is actually the authoritarianism, sorry. And I can talk more about this, but basically, Indonesia is now considered as flawed democracy um, by the Economist Intelligence Unit, for example. The the index was released in January 2025. I actually believe that next year Indonesia will even go further down in the ranks of the democracy index. And so there are analysis. I don't want to go too detail into this analysis, but let me just use one keyword, for example, competitive authoritarianism. So probably on paper, in terms of procedures and institutions, one can see that Indonesia is still a democratic country. But if we analyze even deeper, then we can find that we can put question mark on that. Is Indonesia still a democratic country? Because yes, we do have general election. We just had it last year. But is general election free and fair? Because if some of you have watched the movie that I created with my colleagues called Dirty Vote, you can find it on YouTube, of course, for free. Then it's not free and fair. So the result is the government that has actually, although on paper again, Prabowo got 58% of votes, but you can see from the recent demonstration and then the Indonesia Gelap demonstration and then the Peringatan Darurat demonstration in August 2024 and then another hashtags that really express the opinions of uh, public, then you can question the legitimacy of that government. So with that, then the impact to the law is that it has been used um, as the weapon for the elites. There's actually an academic term for that, um, weaponizing of law, basically. So law for political purposes, and it's usually done by using politics to hijack the lawmaking and law enforcement agencies and procedures. So my um, current research is on autocratic legalism in Indonesia. Basically, um, my thesis is about how uh, the government actually since Jokowi administration has been using law exactly to exercise the power. So I already showed this. I think I will just go directly to the question, how can this happen or why? So my reflection is that we, at least until recently, until everything heated up, and it's actually a good thing in terms of civic rights. Until recently, Indonesia's weak civil society, and it's the result of tens of years of very strong new order regime. I mean, it was 27 years ago that a new order regime was toppled in 1998, right? But a number of um, how do you call it, habits or culture continues. For example, the lack of civic education itself. I mean, civic education in Indonesia means patriotism, very, very narrow-minded patriotism. I'm talking about, saluting the flag and that kind of actions instead of rights-based civic education. And two strong political parties capturing the pre-reform illiberal democratic network. And then there's also the government's developmentalism approach. I quoted some studies here. If you want to search more, use AI or whatever. And then of course strengthened network of the oligarchy, resulting in autocratic legalism again, capturing lawmakers and law enforcement agencies. So this is what's going on, and that's why um, again, back to Aisha's question, if the question is, what do people avoid to talk about? At this very point, since the 3rd of September 2025, basically many people, start to really restrain themselves to talk more on social media. Um, as I said before, because there are people who are, my language is because I very often had to answer questions from the media. My take is that uh, law enforcement agencies at this point, it's like pulling out all um, laws and regulations that they can use just to intimidate the civil society. So my friends, for example, got some articles for the the legal theory from the police, ranging from, of course, the information technology law, because they posted a number of information on their social media, Instagram, Twitter, and all that, about how to report if uh, school students got intimidation. That's all. It's not like um, sending them to whatever public officials to burn them. Not that kind of message. But still, they got that information technology law acquisition, and then provoking the mass kind of legal framework. And also another thing is Undang-Undang Perlindungan Anak, so child protection law, with the argumentation that those school children, high school students, they said, were provoked by those people to go to the streets. So we have been countering that message by saying that, look, going to protests, criticizing the government and the House of Representatives is constitutional rights. If only you don't like immediately dismiss the mass by throwing tear gas, then everything would have had happened, right? I mean, if you just listen to what we say, negotiate as usual. This is what I mean. We have been doing this since very long time ago. That's how usually protesters are dealt with, right? By whoever we are protesting, dialogue and negotiation and the core issues. But uh, what happened lately is that immediately when the protesters came, tear gas were thrown into the mess. So yeah, so that's what's going on now, and probably I should stop my presentation by just giving you some takeaways that civic space in Indonesia continues to decrease, with at least four types of oppression: physical attack, online attack, the use of draconian laws and court, and restrictions on registration and international funding for CSOs. Indonesia's democracy is under threat as autocratic legalism is taking place, driven by the government's developmentalism approach. for the benefit of the political cartel. And the shrinking civic space is a part of a bigger picture of democratic backsliding. So then again, it's not only legal matter. If you really look at the whole bigger picture, you can see this phenomenon. So there is a urgent need I'm sorry, for the typo, international attention to stop the violence that we are currently facing, to release the protesters from prisons and support this work of civil society in responding to the shrinking civic space phenomenon. Again, typo, I'm sorry, civic space phenomenon. So I stop that and give back the forum to Aisha.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bibitri. So if Mr. Hanif talk a lot about balancing the rights between both the public and also the authorities, Ms. Bibitri has touched more on how there are the current ways for the authorities in weaponizing the law, which is something that is quietly connected to what has been mentioned by Mr. Hanif before. So we have a very limited time frame right now, so we will go to the last question that I have prepared for this forum session. So we have talked about the challenges and the context of freedom of expression across both countries. Let us now turn the road ahead and talk about the future. I would like to ask our panelists their brief hopes on what role, hopes or suggestions on what role do universities, civil society, or even public institution can play in supporting open and constructive dialogue so that we can responsibly address misinformation and hate speech and the challenges that we are currently facing. If Mr. Hanif can give his opinion, like a brief one.
All right. Thank you again, Aisha. I think the responsibility is always continuing to the public as well as to any governments. That when we talk about the right to express, the right to criticize, the right to assemble, the governments must look at it as an intention to improve the country, to improve the society, to benefit the nation. It shouldn't take it as a direct affront to the legitimacy of the government. Public is not interested to overthrow a government on a daily basis. That's not in the interest of public. If they find certain things are not happening properly, they would like to exercise their right, their freedom to express and criticize, to bring it to the attention of the authorities so that those who are in power can look into it, to improve it. So it will be a continuing exercise. It did not start, or this right of freedoms, liberties of individuals has not been trampled with only lately. It has been there since Adam, and it will continue until doomsday for those of us who believe in life after. So it's a continuing process. And when it's a continuing process, every society, every government must understand that they cannot overreach their right. Governments cannot pass laws, nor can they actually continuing to exert authority unlawfully. That's where we have discussed earlier. I've also referred to the two cases. If they overreach and pass laws which may be offending to the Constitution, a proper court would declare it as null and void, and they will have to start from scratch. But starting from scratch is one thing. The other thing is the legitimacy, the moral right of the government will be lost when their act and their conduct is determined by the courts to be wrong or affront to the rights of the public. Their respect in the eyes of the society will reduce day by day. So it's only in the interest of any government, whether in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, or anywhere else in this region or the world, to understand that you can only use the law so much to be in power. But if you attempt to use and overreach and abuse the law to be in power wrongfully, then there will be the end of your right. And that's what I believe is something which we can, I hope, take it from this talk today. And to conclude my answer to this question, as far as public is concerned, we can't keep on complaining about the restriction of our rights. Why I'm saying this is because any government, any nation, any authority would like to ensure they've got less problems, little problems in running the country, in governing the nation. They will keep on passing the law. They will keep on exerting power. So what do? We can't complain about the law. We must be brave enough to face the law. Don't forget Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, India, 1930. He had been arrested many a times. But those of us who remember the Satyagraha, the salt, when he was arrested, he was brought before the magistrate. What did the magistrate say? Mr. Gandhi, do you have anything to say in response to the judge before I sentence you? You can carry on with your duty, Mr. Magistrate. You can punish me based on your cruel law. I will continue to do what is right. That is the right approach when you are facing about the rights of the individual, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. You will not get a government in this whole world will be 100% perfect in granting foolproof freedom to all their citizens. How would they be able to make sure they remain in power? So when we are faced with that, we must be brave enough. Less complain, face it, even though you may end up being in prison for a long period of time. Don't forget Mandela as well, yeah? So I think that would be the only conclusion I would make to that. And if I can, is this the last round? If it's the last round, I would just like to leave with a conclusion on my part. May I, Miss Aisha?
Sure. You can give your conclusion because after this is the Q&A session.
Okay. So I would conclude by saying that if we look at the picture all around, I think we must be able to agree that an individual's freedom of speech, expression, or the right to assembly is not absolute and must be balanced against the public's need for order, security, and the protection of others' rights as well. So that would be the issue. Question will always be and will always remain, how do you balance this? And that's where we have the benefit of these sort of discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hanif. We can take that as the younger generations, as the current public right now, the thing that we can do is to be brave in order to make sure that our rights are protected under the laws. And also we can take a lot of inspirations from the previous stories that has been mentioned by Mr. Hani, from Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, as well as something that can light up our spirits in order to practice our rights in freedom of expression, and also on how to balance between all of our rights. So now I would like to invite Mrs. Bivitri to briefly share her hopes and also suggestion on how we can handle the situations of freedom of speech in our society right now.
Just two things. First is to conduct, and if you have done so, then continue conducting rights-based civic education, which definitely will include then freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and all that we have been discussing this past hour. I mean, we are, in universities, epistemic community, academia, we have moral obligation to share the knowledge that we are privileged to have. And in situation, I think I can generalize a little bit. In Southeast Asia, indeed, we have challenges in terms of, the government, the characters of our governments, and then challenges in terms of culture and all that. So we, as the epistemic community, I need to continue sharing rights-based civic education that will encourage more and more people to exercise their freedom of speech, freedom to assembly, and all that. And then secondly, to speak up, as easy as that. Just speak up. Um, universities all over the world have been, I mean, since long time ago, since the very beginning of university in the world, is used as the moral parameter for the society. So people look up at us, not only the professors, but also students. So just speak up if you start to be, afraid of whatever we have in our respective countries. Then organize yourself, get connected, develop network, because predators will only eat animals who are left behind alone, especially. So if we get together, we are connected, we organize ourselves, whatever you can do, having collectives, joining CSOs, joining organizations like ASEAN Law Students Association, and any kind of association and organizations. That's the first way to be brave, to have better knowledge, and to have more strength to speak up about about injustice and wrongdoings that we see probably in our day-to-day lives. Uh, that's all. Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you so much, Mrs. BB3. So the three things that really we can highlight from her speech is that we need more educations on the freedom of speech. Next is to speak up, and also let us all stay connected, or let us all put our hands together in order to make sure that our voices are more heard. So now let us open the floor for a short Q&A session. I would like to invite participants to share their questions with our panelists. If you are unable to turn on your microphone, please feel free to type your question in the chat box and I will read it out on your behalf. Maybe we can allow 1 to 2 questions. Okay, so we have the first question from Akila, which is either Mr. Hanif or Mrs. BB3, what's one thing you have learned as someone who has been speaking about this field for a long time and you wish young students would want to know? I would like to invite either Mr. Hanif or Mrs. BB3 to maybe reply to this question.
What was the question again, please? Sorry.
What's one thing you have learned as someone who has been speaking about this field for a long time and you wish young students would want to know?
Miss B3, would you like to answer that question or?
Well, probably for me, I wish I would learn earlier when I was a student, and I would like you to also to learn about this from the very beginning now. That we really have to read the law, beyond the text. So we can't rely on only the legal basis, legal framework, as I said before. Of course, as uh, lawyers, we have to think like a lawyers, but let's also analyze it beyond law. So when you deal with situation like what's going on in many regions nowadays in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, and also when you deal with the real problem as practicing lawyer in the streets, you can really make use of more in-depth legal analysis and arguments to protect your rights. So yeah, probably that's one thing that I wish I could. I mean, I learned earlier. Now I learn it, by doing and by reflecting on what I have been doing. But yeah, so I encourage you to have to how do you call it? Yeah, basically to have stronger argument uh, on legal issues by using different perspectives and more understanding of context beyond legal framework. Thank you.
If on that particular answer, I think I would share what has been mentioned by VV3 just now. And this is where it's important as students for us to see that if we can think from various perspectives out of the box and challenge provisions which may be shackling the rights of the public and put forward arguments which can bring the courts to decide what is right and what is wrong properly, I would believe that most of the governments would actually be concerned if their act and conduct or their laws passed are declared to be the public right of morality to govern on those laws. So that is where the duty of lawyers is to be able to think from various perspectives. For example, those two cases which have brought in for discussion, Hadi and Hariri, how the arguments were presented to show that annoy itself cannot restrict because annoyance to one person may not be annoyance to another person, and that helped declare the law to be null and void. And by declaring the law null and void, the government loses the right to apply that law, and they'll be extra careful. So that is one way, as much as I agree that public should look at various other ways of expressing the need for a balanced democratic nation. But law itself being our field, we must be able to think out of the box, give interpretations which are proper and fair to convince the courts draconian laws to be declared null and void. If they are draconian, if they are good for the society, we should support it. But very rarely there are laws which are passed against the liberties which are good for the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Mr. Hanif and also Mrs. Vivitri. I am glad and I am sure everyone is really, it is important for us to hear this as a young law students. So before I continue reading the questions or maybe take another question from the chat box, is there any of the participants that would like to turn on their mic and ask a question? Okay, sure. Arifuddin, you may go ahead.
Thank you, moderator. So my question can be answered either by Tuan Hanif or Miss Vitri. So my question is, we know that freedom of speech is also conferred to online platform. So does it as well as its restriction. So my question is, do freedom of speech is more restricted in online or in public spaces, and if so, why? Is my question clear?
Sort of, we can get the spirit of the question.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
As Ms. Bivitri, would you like to start or would you like me to answer?
You can start.
Very well. Well, I'll just refer to the position as it is now in Malaysia, because even though the law and liberties are almost similar in all of the countries, we have seen the provisions referred to by Ms. Susanti as well in Indonesia, and I believe to a certain extent Vietnam, but the provisions will be different. Now, to answer your question, are there more restrictions on social media, to put it in simple language, rather than the normal issues which we have before the advent of internet and social media? I would say actually to a certain extent in Malaysia is almost the same. The threats to public rights are almost the same, except that when internet came in, of course, as I mentioned, we had passed a law, which is the Communications and Multimedia Act of 98, Act 588, where they put in various provisions where you upload or you make statements or comments. I think we have discussed this just now, which may be annoying or obscene or offensive, to be taken action. And on that section, before the decision of Haiti, we could find many were charged. Many were taken to court. At the very least, they were investigated, remanded, and released without charges. But the rights and liberties of these individuals were affected because of that particular draconian law. So now, when this particular section has now been limited to the extent that those words are made null and void, the government would not be, it would not be easy for the authorities and the government to actually limit the power of social media to the extent by relying on these provisions. If they want, they would need to look into enacting other laws, amending the laws. But at the end of the day, I would say in the current generation, like Miss Bivitri has put it, what is it? Gen Z, is it? Or millennial? So, where you have the access to social media, it's difficult for the government, any nation to control what you say and what you express to the extent that they can do it on the public, on the streets. So this itself, they can see the effect of it. Not only let's look at what happened in Indonesia, what happened in Nepal, which we discussed earlier. Don't forget Gaza, Palestine. What's happening in the whole world, where public get information from the social media, they express not necessarily on the social media itself, in public. I think just yesterday I saw a video on the social media where Trump was attending a dinner or function in some restaurant, some place, and he was confronted by their own citizen to call him to be what do you call it, an extremist and a lackey of Jews, Israels, and so on. So this social media expression results in the public to take a different approach in their normal life on the streets. And this is something which no government in the world would be able to handle if they do not correct themselves. How long will that take? Wallahu alam is my answer. Only God knows. But that is a positive move towards that. Any attempt by the government to limit social media itself may bring the downfall of the government, like what happened in Nepal. So that is where the government must also be looking at balancing, not exerting too much control, allowing freedom to breathe for the public to be able to express their views. And that is where social media or Millennial X, Z, and whatnot are the one which are now having an advantage compared to what we may have not had when we were younger. Thank you.
I just following up on Pak Hanif on this. So probably if you're interested, you can reach you can read. I'm currently reading this. If We Burn. This is the book by Vincent Bevins. He also wrote the Jakarta Method. But If We Burn, the mass protest decade and the missing revolution. So this is interesting because I have been reading this because I very often have to talk about exactly this issue nowadays. Because the question is online platform or offline platform. That's for current generation. This is the big issue. That's why I've also been updating myself about this. What Vincent interestingly wrote is that uh, he wrote the situation in the past 10 years up to 2023 because this book was published in 2023, looking at protests all over the world. So this is not about Indonesia. Actually, he hasn't discussed Indonesia, Indonesians' recent situation. So he talked about Hong Kong and all that, and he narrates that there is kind of a new method by the younger generation using social media. It's great. It's great. But he also noticed that it's very good to have quick response to quickly also share information and probably also quickly gather the mass in some places like what happened in Hong Kong, also to some extent in Indonesia and probably in Nepal. But he said you can't stop there just by using social media, because if you only use social media, there won't be any well, he calls it kind of the transformative change. well, he also called it revolution. But um, yeah, it's really it's a good platform because it's quick, it's cheap, it's everything. My colleagues and I have also been using social media a lot. I myself uh, am on Twitter, on Instagram. I make Instagram reels. I even make TikTok videos, just using the platforms. But you cannot stop there. You still need to have offline meetings. You still need to organize people in villages, in urban corners in your cities, and that's one thing. That's one thing. So if you don't do that, then it will only be just sparks of demonstrations, just reactive uh, responses to policies, but you cannot really bring about bigger change. That's what he wrote. But in addition to that, because of the strength of the social media, um, governments with authoritarian characters would also try to shut down the internet. That had happened in Indonesia, for example, in Papua a couple of years ago. On that, we went to court, the administrative court, and we won. And then recently, in the light of the end of August protest, the government also banned TikTok Live for just one day, but it was the crucial moment because some people were having TikTok live, from the streets. Oh, this is look, there are police everywhere and things like that. So they banned TikTok live for just one day. So things like this could easily happen in countries with authoritarian regimes. So that's also why you cannot stop on social media. Now, also, I would like to take make a note there that the weakness of the social media for you who posts things on social media is you are exposed to the authorities, in writing if you express things that are against the government's will. So be careful with what you write because then they will have the proof. Nowadays, it's very easy. Even sometimes one has to make sure is this, Chatham House rules applies or not. Otherwise, people would just take the video of you and then it will go viral in TikTok or Twitter. So be careful with that. Um, and also, you are exposed to actions like doxing, hacking, and all that. So if the question, which one is bigger, I would say it's bigger on social media indeed, but it won't take you, further towards a bigger change, transformative change. So you still have to have offline meetings and community organizing sessions. Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you so much to Mrs. Bibitri and also Mr. Hanif. So we can see that how we, the younger generations, have social media as a platform. However, we need to be smart and we need to balance on how we use it because either as a tool for us to use, it can be something that could harm ourselves. So I really would like to open the floor for more questions as we have a lot of interesting questions in the chat box. However, we are way beyond the time that we are supposed to end our forum session. Don't worry, these questions will be forwarded to our panelists if they would like to answer it in the future. And with the end of the Q&A session, I would like to continue with our closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to our panelists for their thoughtful perspectives and to our audience for joining us today. What we've heard reinforces that freedom of expression is more than a legal guarantee. It is also a cultural practice, social trust, and at times, a contested space. The challenge for our region is to create an environment where dialogue is both open and respectful, protecting national interests without silencing the essential voices. I hope today's discussion will spark further conversations in your classrooms, organizations, and communities. Before we end, I would like to invite everyone for a brief photography session. All participants and Mr. Hanif and also Mrs. Bivitri are encouraged to turn on your camera and give us your brightest smile.
I hope it's not too bright a smile.
It is okay if it's too bright. Okay, so let us start with a formal pose. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. So actually, we have a pose for ALSA, which is always be one. I would like to invite everyone to do this pose, which is we will take out number 1
Okay.
for our freestyle pose. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. With that, I officially close our session. Thank you to both of our respected panelists, Mr. Hanif Khatri and also Mrs. Vivitri Susanti, for their very insightful sharing session.
Thank
I officially close our session. Thank you, and may the dialogue continue beyond this room. I'll pass the floor
Thank you.
back to our MC. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you to Sister Aisha for being our moderator, and many thanks to all speakers from all over the world for those insightful discussions and conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, the event continues with a little Kahoot session to test your knowledge on what we have learned today. Okay? So, for your information, the top 3 winners of this Kahoot game will receive a prize. Is there anyone would like to take a guess on what the prize is before we begin? Yes, Arifudin, what's your guess?
My guess is it is some sort of a voucher.
Voucher, interesting. I saw one of you putting up the emoji of a money bag, a bag full of money. A holiday trip, maybe, but we would never know. We would not know if we don't play the game first. So be prepared and be agile so that you'll not only leave with knowledge, but also with this amazing mystery prize. So, ladies and gentlemen, you may kindly scan the QR code presented in the slides to join. Okay. Once you have entered, please use your real name so it would be easier for us to locate you. Please refrain yourselves from using your nicknames or pseudonyms. Okay. So with that, I would like to welcome Sister Akila to lead this Kahoot session. Sister Akila, take it away.
Thank you so much, Brother Talha. Hello everyone, I'm Akila, and everyone can call me Akila. Actually, everyone is welcome to open their microphone for this session. Alright, can I have a full name on display instead of nicknames so that it will be easier for us to locate and for you to redeem your prize? Just a hint, it will be in a monetary form, so it definitely bring some value despite your countries, whether you're Malaysian or Indonesia or Vietnam. Right, we have 17 people in. Then we have about maybe more because right now we have 57 in the Zoom. Committees are very much welcome to join. Come on, guys, we're already 23 people here. 24, 25, 26, right. Can we reach 35 or 40? Right, 26 people. Can we have another 4? Maybe we'll start at 12:25. Just 4 more people to get into 30. Yes, 27. Thank you, Najwa. 28. Just for your information, there will be about 20 questions. There are questions from Vietnam, from Malaysia, and from Indonesia. Each question will have 30 seconds. But I did not say explicitly here if you cannot use an internet or Google, but let's just keep it that way if you want to win the prize. But yeah, already okay, 30 people here. Right, we have Trang, we have Tanisha, we have Ilham, we have Asna, we have Shazawardina, we have Adi Iskandar. All right, so we'll begin to start now. Everyone on your toes. For the first question category, we have Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. The first question. Among the following Vietnamese laws, which one does not directly regulate the right of freedom of expression? So when you think about freedom of expression, what is the question? What is the law? Maybe is it road traffic? Does it really apply? We have cybersecurity law, we have the constitution, and we have the press law. Okay, two more questions. 2 more answers. All right. The answer is we have someone answering press law and cybersecurity and constitution. Okay. Next question. Why are restrictions on freedom of expression justified in Vietnam? As you know, Vietnam is a unitary country, and it's unfortunate that we don't have Mr. Hao here. But I think it would be a very general answer. Promote entertainment, protect national security, reduce government workload, and limit public participation in politics. Okay. Another one answer. The answer is right. Someone answered entertainment, reduce government workload, and limit public participation. Let's see who is the top 3. Oh, we have a representative from IUM, both Alia and Aisha Camelia. Right, moving on. How is freedom of expression defined best under Vietnam's legal framework? Is it guaranteed by the constitution? Is it considered a privilege granted by administrative bodies? Or is it an absolute right? Or only mentioned in press law and nowhere else? Okay, what's the answer? It's quite tricky. So I'll give it to people answering in yellow and green. Right, moving on. Let's see who's the top three. Right, Alia B and Alia is still on the first and the third place, right? Moving on. In Vietnam, freedom of expression may be restricted for which of the following reasons? That's quite fast. All right. Okay, the answer is no reason. Okay, someone answering that must be a funny fella. Moving on, let's see who's the top three. Oh, we have Alia Zulfa, we have Alia, and we have Trang. Moving on to the top one. Moving on to the fourth category. Sorry, to the sixth question. Under Vietnamese law, which of the following types of speech is restricted? Can we really incite violence or hatred, guys? Right, okay. What's the answer? Speech inciting violence or hatred. Okay, the types of speech that is restricted, guys, not that is allowed. Okay, moving on. Who's the top three? Alia Zulfa is still on the third place. Alia moving on to the first, and Trang going down. It's okay. We have 19 participants having strict 5, right? And lastly, which treaty is signed by Vietnam protects freedom of expression? This one is a bit tricky. So if you have a little bit knowledge on international law, what is the common party that is treaty that is signed and the state party to this treaty? Right, another 3 answers. Okay. Right, okay, let's see. Who's the top 3? We have Trang, Alia, and Raihana Sultan from Indonesia. Okay, moving on. I think this is the first time we can see the representative from each of the 3 countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and also Vietnam. Moving on to the 9th question. What does the Federal Constitution Malaysia say about freedom of expression? Is it absolute? Is it guaranteed with parliamentary limits? Or is it guaranteed only to political parties? Or is it only granted to the government? Okay, that's the answer. Freedom of speech is not absolute and it must be restricted, guys. All right. Let's move on to the next question. For the 10th question, I literally gave away the answer. Is the freedom of speech in Malaysia absolute? Right, another 3 answers. 29, 30, and 31. All right. Okay. Oh my god, it is absolute. Okay, this is a funny fella. Okay, moving on to the 11th question. Following laws regulate freedom of expression in Malaysia. This one is very, very easy. 30 and 30. No, alright, let's continue. While all the laws provisions here are correct, I think it's more correct if we say all of the above, right? Okay, moving on to the 12th question. We have 8 more questions to go. Why does Malaysia impose restrictions on freedom of expression? Is it to allow unrestricted criticism of monarchy? Is it to limit the power of judiciary? Okay, another 1 answer. 31. All right. Your answer. All right. Let's see the top scorer. Okay, the 4th above are still in their place. Moving on to the 13th question. Let's see if they're still in their place. Right? How do new laws like cybersecurity affect digital freedoms? Can we really freely criticize the government, to provide greater digital freedom and privacy protections, to expand surveillance and censorship, or to abolish government control over speech online. 30 and 31. Okay. There are quite a small gap between blue and green, right? All right, moving on. All right, moving on to the next question of Indonesia. Which article of 1945 Constitution of Indonesia guarantees the right to freedom of expression? This one is easy because we have seen in the presentation, and also Rahana mentioned about this during the presentation. Right, 28, 29, 30. We have two more answers. All right. Yes, we have Article 28E. Okay. I think in comparison to, yeah, let's continue to the next question while I talk about it. Malaysia have Article 10, but they have Article 28, 28E. Okay, now we talk about electronic information and transaction. It's often criticized because does it only apply to traditional media outlets? Or does it not regulate digital expression at all? Or does it contain vague provisions that may criminalize online speech? What's the general idea? And why do the Indonesians criticize this provision? Okay, another two answer. Okay. Correct. Moving on. Right, Rayhana is moving on to the top two scorer. Moving on. I see Aisha Camelia is climbing up and claiming the top 3 points and rank. Under the new Indonesian criminal, which type of expression may still lead to criminal liability? Quite fast. I think I heard about Miss BVG talking about penal code earlier. 28, 29, 30 and the moment we have elections, we have human rights, and public information disclosure. Another one answer. 30, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The answer is law, public information disclosure, because the key here is public information. Okay, moving on to the 20th, the last question. Which institution monitors human rights expression in Indonesia? It's very obvious, guys. The key here is human rights expression. Human rights. I think in Malaysia we have Suhakam, but in Indonesia we have other two answers. Right. Okay. HAM. Indonesia is more familiar with the term HAM, which is Human Rights Commission. Okay, let's see. Number 3. 447. Atif. Can you put down your name in the chat box so that our financial controller can refer to you and you can redeem your prize? Right. Thank you so much, Aisha Camelia, Atif, Raihana Sultan, and everyone who participated in the Kahoot. I'll now pass back the floor to Mr. Talha. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you to Sister Akila for leading this Kahoot session, which was really, really exciting. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we arrive at the end of the program today, we hope that your journey with us has been the most meaningful and memorable to you. To end this auspicious gathering, let us hear a few final words from a couple of representatives. We begin with the Vietnam ALSA chapter. Please welcome.
Oh, sorry.
May we re-
You
oh, yeah.
call national charter from Vietnam?
Yes. Can you give a few final words as a
Yeah.
representative from the Vietnam ALSA chapter? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the National Board of ALSA Vietnam, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers, guests, and law students who have joined the Building Bridges International Law Exchange Program. And as one of the co-organizers, we would like to send a truly thanks for you, and we also really proud that this program has become a bridge connecting law students from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And beyond being an opportunity to enrich our knowledge of international law, of law in each of our countries, and also the forum also created a meaningful cultural exchange experience for us and encourage the sharing of diverse perspectives, helping us to deepen our understanding and also strengthen the bonds within the international law student community in general and the ALSA community in particular. We are especially grateful to ALSA IIUM for giving ALSA Vietnam the opportunity to co-organize this meaningful program. And we would also like to express our special appreciation to our friends and dedicated partners from ALSA IIUM, ALSA Malaysia, and ALSA Indonesia, whose strong collaboration and a wonderful spirit of our shared success. And we believe this is just the beginning of our many more meaningful collaborations in the future. So congratulations on the success of the program. And we look forward to continuing this journey together with you in the coming days. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned for more exciting activities for law students organized by ALSA.
Okay, thank you to the representative for the Vietnam ALSA chapter. Next, please welcome the representative for the Indonesia ALSA chapter.
Good afternoon, the distinguished guests and esteemed panelists and respective fellow ALSA members. On behalf of ALSA Indonesia, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the opportunity to be part of this meaningful program. Uh, Today, we have not only gained new perspective on freedom of expression and civil rights, but we have also built valuable friendships and professional connections across Malaysia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. It's exactly what makes ALSA unique, where law meets friendship and where our diversity becomes our strength. I would like to sincerely thank the organizing committee for their hard work and bringing this program to life, our distinguished speakers and for their insightful contribution, and all the participants for your active engagement throughout the session. Um, Although this event comes to an end, I believe the collaboration and spirit we shared today will continue beyond this platform, and let us carry forward this lesson we have learned and bridges that we built so that together we can shape more interconnected and progressive among ALSA. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again in the future, and may ALSA always be one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the Indonesia ALSA chapter's representative. Continuing, please welcome the representative from the Malaysian ALSA chapter to give a few final words.
All right, so hi everyone. Again, I am Irina Alia, and I will be the representative from ALSA Malaysia to give a few words for the closing remarks on behalf of ALSA Malaysia. So first and foremost, I would just like to extend my utmost gratitude to ALSA IIUM for inviting us to participate in this event, and I hope that future collaborations between local chapters and also the national chapter can increase, and that more local chapters can actually reach out to us ALSA Malaysia for future collaborative initiatives. I do believe that ALSA Malaysia in the near future will have no problem in partaking in these efforts done by the local chapters. I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to also Vietnam and also Indonesia for their efforts in their event as well, in this event as well. Thank you so much for also allowing yourself to be able to do this event with ALSA IIUM. Without you guys, we would not have been able to have a multicultural event, and this exchange of knowledge and culture will also not have happened without them. So thank you to all of you as well. And lastly, to all of the committee members that have made this event a success, I would like to say thank you for all the hard work that you have put in for this event, and hope that all of you had fun whilst preparing for this event, because I know that we had taken about 3 months to do this event. So thank you so much for all the committee members. All in all, it was a successful event, and I hope events like this can be done more, so that the network between ALSA members, not just within our borders, but also cross borders, can benefit from these type of events. So once again, thank you everyone from ALSA Malaysia.
Okay, thank you to ALSA Malaysia for those kind words. Lastly, allow us to welcome the Program Manager for the Building Bridges International Law Exchange Program, Sister Akila binti Akbar Omar, to give a few words.
Thank you so much, Brother Talha. And hello, Assalamualaikum, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akila, and I'm the program manager for this program, Building Bridges International Law Exchange. So for the past 3 months, my team, together with ALSA IUM, ALSA Malaysia, ALSA Indonesia, and Vietnam, we all have dedicated ourselves wholeheartedly to make this program a reality. And to be honest, every representative, if I may mention the names, Ilham from Indonesia, Po from Vietnam, and Izati from ALSA Malaysia, and my own team from IUM, which if I list down the names, it will be very lengthy. But in short, they all have been very incredibly communicative, cooperative, and dedicated. So truly, I can say that this has been a dream team to work with. So throughout our discussion today, we can see that there are inconsistencies and inequalities that manifest in not just in Malaysia, but across all even though Vietnam is not here today, but I say across all three, Indonesia and also Vietnam. So in short, we have in Malaysia, for example, the case of Zara, a very young girl subjected to, bullying. And Indonesia, we witnessed the tragic case of, no Muhammad, Afan Kurniawan, a Gojek driver whose life was taken by those meant to be to protect the police officers. And in Vietnam, generally, we know that the reality it is a very strongly unitary system that shows us another dimension of governance and law. It was very unfortunate that we don't have Mr. Hao here, but I believe that it will be very, very, very interesting to talk about topic to talk about. And this program has, I believe, a platform that provide the youth to learn and to exchange perspective and to expand our knowledge. Hence, the diversity of ideas that is shared in the forum should be and have be combined with the smaller facilitator sessions. And even though it was within a very short time, we have discussed issues of very real significance that fits so much valuable content into just very short one program. So before I end, I would like to express my immense gratitude to my committee members. And truly, in Malaysia, if I may say, ini bukan, puji-puji, but everyone have been truly a dream team, and I hope our close-knit relationship will continue even beyond this program. Okay, even though this is just a virtual program, but inshallah, I hope one day we can transform this into an offline program. Perhaps maybe we can have Vietnam and Indonesia visiting us, or us visiting Vietnam and Indonesia in person. But above all, I sincerely hope that we will continue to nurture and protect the strong relationship that we have built through this initiative. So thank you. May this be the beginning of many more collaborations to come, and may ALSA always be one. Thank you, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you to Sister Akila for those inspiring words, and thank you also for making this program possible. Ladies and gentlemen, with those final words, the gathering has come to an end. In order to capture this wonderful moment, let us have one last photography session before we disperse so that we can all have something to hold on to. So ladies and gentlemen, you may open your camera and strike a pose.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Alicia and I am from ALSA IIUM. So before we continue, let's take a quick group photo. And for the first one, we will do our signature pose, ALSA always be one. And for the second one, we will go for a match from a pose. So it might take a little while for us to capture everyone on screen. So please hold on to your poses and keep smiling until I say it is time. So is everyone ready? Okay, so for the first
Yes.
one, ALSA always be one. So one on the count of 1, 2, 3. Everyone ready, please. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, that's perfect. So now let's move on to the second pose, which is the formal pose. Again, just hold your smile a little longer. So ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before leaving, kindly fill in the attendance form provided in the chat box so that we may know your feedback for this event. Menarik halus papan di Jawa, tersergam kukuh di gerbang batu. Adat berjumpa terpisah jua, moga ketemu di lain waktu. With that, we would like to sincerely apologize for any shortcomings along the way. Thank you for joining the session and hope that we will get the chance to meet again. Goodbye and have a great day. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you guys around.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Uh, group hotel, group